Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Frank here. I am finally working on my next build, which is going to be a bush hog for my 128 Cub Cadet. So this tractor is from 1972, and what's unusual about it is it has a rear PTO. I showed it in a video a couple of months ago. The PTO on these old tractors, it was largely useless because there were really no implements made for these tractors, because the PTO on these tractors runs backwards and at the wrong speed. And it has to do with the way the transmission is built. It runs at 511 RPM counterclockwise instead of clockwise at 540 RPM. I mean, it's close, but it's exactly opposite. So a company called Hub City came out with a reverser, which is a little gearbox which bolts to the back of the tractor and changes the PTO, which is actually I think a 1 1/8 inch shaft running with different splines running backwards to the 1 3/8, a standard category 1 PTO shaft, which I think is 1 3/8, 6 spline that runs clockwise at 540 RPM. So I've got a reverser on this tractor. We're going to build a 3-point hitch. The first couple episodes here are going to be building the 3-point hitch, and it's going to be a 3-point hitch that I can put basically anything on. So it will be a generic, suitable for any implement of appropriate scale for this tractor. All right, let's go over and look at the tractor, and I'll show you what we're dealing with. So this is the Cub Cadet 128. It's a pretty standard Cub Cadet from early 1970s. It is a gear drive, and it does have ag tires and wheel weights. It's a 12 horsepower Kohler K-series single cylinder gasoline engine. It's 3 speeds forward, 1 speed reverse. It does not have the creeper gear, which I do not have on this tractor. The creeper gear is a reduction gearbox that gives you 3 more speeds, which are lower than the existing speeds. The reason to use a creeper is if you're, for example, tilling a garden, you would want to, or using a snow blower on these tractors, you need to really slow down. And so they made a creeper gear, which is a little planetary gearbox which fits underneath this cover in line with the drive shaft and reduces the tractor speed. Anyway, this tractor does have a rear PTO, and you can see on the back here the reversing gearbox called a reverser. The existing PTO shaft is right through here. So you can see that has, I don't know, a dozen splines on that shaft, and it's an inch and 1/8 or something. This is a standard category 1 spline. I think it's what, six splines, 1 3/8. So this gearbox has a couple gears in it, and it converts the counterclockwise 511 RPM to clockwise 540 RPM. So the reason to use this is to get a standard power output from the tractor that really didn't have a standard power output. So Brutus is coming in here. What do you think, Brew? You gonna help me build this? Huh? Good boy. Good boy. Okay, so 3-point hitch. We need 2 lower arms. We're going to attach them to these axles here and over here. And then there are 2 bushings up here, one over here. So we'll put a shaft between those and we'll link to the middle of that, and that'll be the top link. This is a transmission, identical transmission, duplicate, and the axle housing here is the same. So if we can measure across the flats, 2.345. It's tapered a little bit. 2.28, 2.3 basically there. .31 over here. 2.36. So I'm going to take an average here, pretty much in the middle. .31. So we'll call it 2.3. I mean, the accuracy here does not need to be super. 2.32. All right, so that's across the flats on the axle. So we're going to make a clamp to go around this axle housing, to wrap around it, make it in 2 parts. We'll bolt it together. And not unlike what is here for the brake caliper. You see that it has 1 strap here, and then there's a casting or stamped forged steel bracket here. Let me see if we can go on the other side and look at it. Maybe you can see it better here. So there's a bracket here which holds the disc brakes, and then on the back side it's clamped to go around the axle. So this is the idea. We're going to go around the axle with a bracket that will support the inner end of the lower support arms. All right, so we know the distance across the flats on here. We just need to calculate a few more dimensions. We can try to measure this distance, but 1.3. You know, trying to average that value out and get something which is close. I'm getting 1.3. We need to know how long a strap to make. Going around there, we could use the numbers we measured, but I do want to confirm them, so we'll make some calculations over here. So as we measured on the axle, the distance across the flats on the hexagonal 6-sided axle was 2.35 inches. I'm looking at my pocket reference, and it gives the formulas for regular polygons. Regular polygons are those that have all sides equal. We have a regular polygon, a hexagon with 6 sides. So this gives you the formulas you need to calculate whatever you want to calculate. I measured a couple things. The distance across the entire axle from top to bottom was 2.35 inches. So that's one thing we know. Now, since this is a hexagon, then all this angle here is 2 theta. Theta being a generic angle designation for polygons in this table and in the formulas. But we know that 2 theta is 60 degrees, because to go a complete circle you have to go 360 degrees. So you know that each of these is going to be 60 degrees. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has to add up to 360 degrees. So 360 divided by 6 is 60. So 2 theta equals 60. So theta equals 30 degrees. So we know that. Now what I'm trying to confirm is this distance A, which is really hard to measure on the axle because the corners are rounded. And I mean, I can get an approximate measurement that may be good enough, but I can calculate this value because I know this distance, the diameter, pretty accurately because I used a pair of calipers. And I can't measure this because these edges are curved and I don't know exactly where to measure, though I can probably get close. Now the handbook here gives us a formula, and I'll write it out. It basically gives the relationships between all the different parameters. So I'll write it down here. The area of the polygon is equal to n, which is the number of sides, times the length of each side, times the little radius. Being that the little radius is the radius from the center to the point in the middle of a side, versus the large radius is to an apex. So there's two different radius values that you can measure, and they're used for an inscribed polygon inside a circle of radius large R, or the polygon circumscribing a circle of radius small r, which would be a circle inside that touches, that's tangent to all the sides, versus a circle which is on the outside and touches each of the apexes. So that's the two radii. So area equals NAR over 2, and that equals n little r squared tangent of theta, which is also equal to n big R squared over 2 times the sine of 2 theta. So that'd be the sine of 60. So using this formula, we can calculate anything. All we have to do is know a couple values, determine what we want to know. So if we know the distance across is 2.35 inches, we can calculate A. We know theta is 30, so we can use this formula right here, this piece of the overall formula. So we know n is 6, A we need to calculate, R we know is 1/2 of 2.35, nr squared tangent theta is 30. So we know everything but A in this formula. So let's calculate that. So it's NAR over 2 equals NR squared tangent theta. So we know 6 times A times R. R is 1/2 of 2.35, which is 1.175. 1.175 over 2 equals 6, which is n, 1.175 squared times the tangent of 30. So 6 times 1.175 equals, so that's 7.05 times A over 2 equals 1.175 squared is 1.38 times 6 is 8.28 times tangent of 30. So let's do 30, tangent is 0.577, let's call it 0.58. All right, so we've got everything reduced to values except for A, which is the unknown. So let's calculate for A. So we can cross multiply both sides of the equation by 2. So 7.05A equals 2 times 8.28 times 0.58. And then we can divide both sides by 7.05. And that'll leave A equals 2 times this 8.28 times 0.58. So let's do that. Let's clear 2 times 8.28 times 0.58 divided by 7.05. That equals 1.36 inches. All right. So I did use the calipers to try to measure the width of that, and I got about 1.3. So I was pretty close, but this would be the exact value. Now, realistically speaking, that means this is 1.36 if this is 2.35. I mean, we're going to fabricate this bracket to go around the axle. You know, the accuracy to, hundredths of an inch, I mean, we're not going to be able to get there. We're going to bend some plate steel. But we can get close. So my measurement with the caliper in reality of 1.3 was probably plenty close enough, but at least this confirms the measurement and gives us, I mean, the truly accurate value that we need to shoot for. And we know that we're going to cut steel plates that will bend and create the strap. We're going to make it 2 straps, one underneath and one other, and then we'll bolt it together. So each of these sides is 1.36. I'm going to say, let's add this, make this an inch out each side. Then each piece we make will be 3 sides and then a flange, basically. And these are 1 inch, 1 inch, and this is 1.36, 1.36, 1.36. So 1.36 times 3 plus 2 equals 6.08. So the total length of this strap is 6.08, really 6 inches. That doesn't take into account the fact that there's thickness here and the bends won't be exactly, really we're on the inside of this to match the axle. So we don't want it to be loose. So I think using these values, I mean, to fit exactly, you would have to increase the length a little bit to allow for the corners, the curves at the corners, because they're not going to meet like this. They're going to be curved because you can't bend it to a perfect angle unless it's very thin. But thicker material, we're going to use 1/4 inch. So I think we'll continue to use these values. We'll bend one, make sure it works before we cut more. But I think since we want it to be tight, we want the bolts through here to the other flange, for the other side to be, we want this bolt through this flange to pull it together and be tight. So we use that value anyway, recognizing that it's probably going to be a little bit small, but that's okay. We'll pull it together with the bolts and we'll have a tight clamp. So here we are in Fusion 360, and I have modeled the axle strap that we need to cut out, and I've actually made little notches in the edge where we're going to make the bends. And I did increase the length of this flange from 1 inch to 1.25 inches on both ends. So that's the clamp strap that we're going to cut out. And I've also modeled the bracket which we will weld to the bottom. This area here, the cutout area, should wrap around the strap, and we'll weld it to the strap. And of course here is for a 3/4 inch pin that will hold the lower end. We'll use 2 of these, one on each side of the strap. I'm not good enough with Fusion 360 to actually, bend this piece and then attach this piece to it and show you what it will look like. But if you can imagine this strap bent around the axle, and then this 2 of these pieces, one on each side of the strap to hold the pin which will go through the lower support arm, the lower control arm of the 3-point lift. So this piece up here is 3/8, and this piece down here is 1/4 inch. And the fact that they're different on here doesn't make any difference. When we go to the manufacturer tab, we can create G-code for one piece or the other piece, and I've created 2 G-code files. So here's the strap we're going to cut out. Sorry about the reflection. So this is 1/4 inch, and we'll go ahead and spin up the plasma table and cut these out. The second component is here, and we'll cut this out of 3/8. So we'll go back to the first one. Okay, so let me get the plasma table set up, and we'll cut a couple of these out. All right, so that part looks fine. Let me cut out one more. Alright, so there's the second strap. Pull these out of the table. So for those of you that have seen pieces cut out on a plasma table, you understand that there's a little bit of slag on the back edge, and chipping it off by pushing it toward the edge is the easiest thing to do. There we go. Minimal. So you can see the notches are pretty small, but they're sufficient to provide guidance for the bending process. So this is my Harbor Freight 20-ton hydraulic press, and I did a video on this last year where I fabricated this swag off-road finger press, and so it's installed here on the Harbor Freight press frame. I've also upgraded the press to an air-operated hydraulic jack as well. So this will bend, easily bend 3/8 inch and probably bend 1/2 inch steel. I haven't tried it with 1/2 inch, but I have bent a 4 or 5 inch wide piece of 3/8 inch and it worked fine. So we're bending 1/4 inch here. So I've made a couple of 120 degree templates, which I'll use to judge my progress on the bends. Not quite enough, obviously. Just a little bit more here. So I may have overbent that a little bit. And maybe a tad. All right, but that's the basic idea. Let's go see how this fits on the axle. All right, let's just see how this fits. It looks like it fits fine. It's really not loose on there. So I think a couple of these will work fine. Let's bend the other one. And so that one actually looks more symmetrical than the first one. All right, we're just going to put these on this axle just to see how they fit. This is in the way. Alright, well that's no good, that's loose. So my first attempt at cutting the straps left them too large, so I'm scaling it down by 5%, so it'll be 0.95. See if this will tighten it up a little bit. So when I scaled this down by 5%, it also made the holes 5% smaller, which I was a little bit concerned about. Looks like they're big enough, but I can't go much smaller than that without redrawing the component and starting over with it. Let's see if this feels substantially tighter. Let's see. Oh yeah. That's rock solid. Okay, I can cut 2 more of this size and then cut out the brackets for the lower, that'll hold the pin, it'll hold the lower support arm. All right, so that's the second pair of brackets. Let's go test fit them. All right, so that's good too. That's hot. The cutout part is not particularly hot because it's in the water, but the edges of the cut are hot. All right, so that should fit the bracket. Alright, so I can either weld it to the side or weld it here. I take these points off a little bit, but it's got a little bit of a gap, primarily due to this curved surface. But that should work fine. I'll be able to touch those corners up a little bit, get it to fit a little bit closer. So I'm just using these nuts as spacers so that these two brackets are the right distance apart. Alright, so that gives me the little bit more than 1.5 inches spacing for this bracket. And all I'm going to do at this point is tack it in place, and then once we get the lower arms, then I'll come back and weld it. So that's the first one. Second one. Okay guys, that wraps up this first episode of the Cub Cadet Rotary Cutter build. Just getting started here, building the 3-point hitch. Got the brackets fabricated for the lower arms of the 3-point hitch. Tell me what you think about the air-operated jack on the hydraulic press and that off-road, swag off-road finger press. There is a video on the channel that shows me fabricating that finger brake, which is a kit from Swag Off-Road. And I think it's swagoffroad.com. There's no affiliation or anything, but it worked pretty well, I think. It bent those quarter-inch thick straps like nothing. So big improvement. All you guys that said to get an air-operated jack, you're absolutely right. That was a huge labor saver. Definitely a great idea. So thanks for that. I'm not sure I would have, maybe I would have come up with, thought about that eventually, but you guys gave me the right advice. So I appreciate that. Give me a comment, tell me what you think. How big should the rotary cutter be, diameter? I do have the gear box on order, so I think it's supposed to be here tomorrow. So that'll be an essential component of the rotary cutter. We'll come back next week working on the lower arms for the 3-point hitch, and then the next step would be the top link attachment to the tractor and discussion looking at the hydraulics that we need to add to the tractor to operate the lift. So that's, I think I'm going hydraulic. I mean, the alternative is linear actuators, electric linear actuators, but I don't know that they would have the power. I mean, you can get some pretty powerful ones in terms of force, but they would be slower and probably not as durable as hydraulics. So I'm tending toward the hydraulics. I don't have as big a reservoir of hydraulic fluid on this tractor since it's a gear drive compared to the hydrostatic drive tractors. So it's a little bit less gear oil, and it doesn't have the filter that the hydrostatic tractors have. They have a hydraulic oil filter on them. Now, you don't really need the filter since there's no hydrostat. It's just a gearbox, so maybe that doesn't matter. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're just getting into this build. It's going to take us, a couple more episodes to do the 3-point hitch, and then we'll get into the cutter, building the cutter itself, which I think is going to be interesting. So hit the notification bell, thumbs up, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Help out the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.